Hi, folks. I'm thinking that green is now becoming the new black. Join me. Hi, folks. So, welcome to The Way I See It, which is my podcast on all things finance, money, and the economy. So, I think a month ago, I took my kid to the store to buy him a snack, and I bought him a cookie and all. And he asked me, Dad, how was this made? You know, so I assumed he was talking about, how were cookies made. So I was going into this, lecture on cookie dough and sugar and salt and all that. He said, no. I mean, how was it made? Was it made using like clean energy? I was like, why don't I know if it's made using clean energy? And he answered, well, I want to save the environment, we want to save the planet and all that. So I told him, okay, I'll look it up, I'll Google it and I'll come back to you. My son is 11. But that struck me as an interesting conversation, that he was very worried about, the environment, and he was starting to ask questions about if a particular product was made, using environmentally, safe production process. When I was growing up, I was very, very particular about what was in my food as well. I would look at, like, if I would take soda or take snacks and all that, I would look at the preservative because I did read one time that, sodium benzoate, which is a very, very common preservative, that if it was left in the sun, it produced benzene. And I just felt that it wasn't healthy taking in benzene. So I would look at sodas, especially the dark sodas, and see if it had sodium benzoate. So if it had it, I wouldn't touch it. I mean, that was my thing when I was growing up. So it made sense to me that, he was looking more like to the environment. And I started to, just think about this, Gallup in 2018, Gallup, guys that did the polls, they did a study and they found out what's called the global warming age gap. Basically, they're saying that beliefs and attitudes about climate change are really split by how old you are. If you're a younger person, you are more likely to be more worried about the environment and the climate than if you're older. The specific numbers are this. I'm like 70% of the adults aged 18 to 34 say they're worried about global warming. And only 56% of those aged 55 and older say they are worried about global warming. So it's a bit of a split along the age distribution. But this has very, very big business implications when we talk about how the youth view global warming and the climate and how the older generation view global warming and the climate. Let me lay some figures down for you guys. Six of America's largest banks. So we're talking about Wells Fargo, Goldman Sachs, Citigroup, Bank of America, Morgan Stanley, and JP Morgan Chase. They've all updated or announced new lending policies, and they're basically aligning their balance sheets to meet the goals set out in the Paris Climate Agreement. So basically, all they're saying is this: we're not going to start to cut down, or we're going to start to review lending that we do to make sure our lending and our balance sheet is in line with keeping the environment cleaner or better or reducing emissions. So they've already come out to say we're not going to lend in the Arctic. So any guy trying to drill in the Arctic is not going to get a loan from any of the top six banks in America. They've said that. If you look into the asset management space as well, we're talking big figures here. More or less, Wall Street Journal did report in a study they just did that investors are putting about 3 billion a day into funds that are dedicated or looking at the environment as a key criteria before they invest. 3 billion a day. And this figure also really struck me. They said as recently as 2014. So in 2014, yeah, energy companies spent 735 billion on oil and gas. So 2014 Oil and gas companies spent 735 billion, right? But this figure, as huge as it sounds, was less than what they did last year, i.e., 2013. While wind and solar has gone up by 220 billion, has gone up to 220 billion. That's up from 135 billion 6 years ago. So the data is from Rystad Energy, consulting firm. So in essence, what we're seeing is that money is starting to drop off, going towards oil and gas, and that money is starting to go towards green projects, wind, solar, more or less. So that Wall Street Journal report, in case you're interested, is called "The Green Finance Goes Mainstream," right? And they're making the case with facts, figures, and the flow of funds that America, especially the West, EU, and all that, their banks, their investment funds, they are all making commitments not to invest in fossil fuels, not to invest in industries that are going to damage the environment or to release carbon into the air. They are talking about cap and trade. They are talking about reviewing all loans. We're going to ask the question, is this loan going to impact lending in a is this loan going to impact the environment in a positive way or in a negative way? So they're going to ask all that. So it's important for us as, should we say, investors managing our own portfolios to ask the question, does it make sense for us to be investing in sectors like oil and gas if we know that the institutional investors are starting to leave those sectors? That's the question really want to ask ourselves. Do we think that the big Wall Street banks that are all making a public pledge to no longer invest in oil and gas in the Arctic and to begin to cut down lending to oil and gas to be net neutral by 2050? Do we think that these banks do not like profit, or are they just being quote unquote woke? I think the reality is this. If your next generation of customers say they prefer a certain direction, then you as a business has got to bend to that direction. And right now, the people of the world, the youths of the world, are making it very loud and very clear that they will not do business with companies that do not respect the environment, do not respect the climate, and do not invest in renewables. Hence, you are seeing the shift, not just in banks, but in everything. You see soaps promoting the use of cleaner power, that they're not wasting water. You see cornflakes companies telling you we are packing our packages in recyclable cartons and all that. Everyone is doing solar, everyone is doing rechargeable raw materials, because that's what you have to do going forward to appeal not just to your customers, but to future employees. If you are seen not to be in tune with a cleaner environment, that's a very, very bad sign for your brand. And it would basically hurt you out there in the market. Not just that, the politics is also favoring a cleaner, in quotes, environment. The White House, President Biden has come out to say he's rejoining the Paris climate change. He has put the entire US government on a footing to review and to adopt climate positive policies. We've seen the Fed say that they want to link lending to the climate, the SEC and all that. So it's a full court press release from the regulators, from your customers, from shareholders. So you, as you're a company, you really, really have to step up your green game. Because if you don't, you could get, in quotes, should we say, people could come to your annual general meeting and demand certain things from you. In the US, for example, you can go, if you have enough votes, that is, to the AGM of a company, if you're a shareholder, and demand it and to pass a resolution. For instance, JP Morgan Chase narrowly defeated a resolution that asked them to declare, hey, where you guys lending to? Could you guys change your policies on lending? So company went there and basically passed a resolution, or tried to pass that resolution. And they got almost 49% of the vote. That happened just last year. So if you don't do it, your hand will be forced to do it. And when I mean it's if you're not climate friendly, your hands will be forced to be climate friendly. So we have to start to ask questions now going forward about companies. Is that company, how green it is? If the company is making a profit, how green is that company? Let's be specific here. If a Nigerian bank today was trying to go raise Eurobonds, could any Nigerian bank, pass a climate check test? All the Nigerian banks I know use diesel to run their head offices. They use generators, they use diesel. That's really bad for the environment. Will any of those banks be able to pass the test? Do they recycle their used computers? Do they recycle wastewater? So this is going to be the questions that are going to be asked. It's no longer going to be enough to say we have a high dividend yield or we make a high margin on our loans. They're going to start to ask you questions. How are you generating power? How are you recycling your checkbooks? Things like that. But the bigger question is, what will NNPC do? What will Nigeria do if financing dries up? Are we going to go towards China? Of course. Then China will buy that oil at a far cheaper price. So there's no free lunch here. We have to begin as a country to understand that oil is not going to go anywhere. But oil demand is going to be towards the companies that are able to sell in quote cleaner oil. So if you are an NNPC, you have to start to buy carbon offsets. So if you sell crude oil, you have to buy carbon offsets to plow back your polluting the environment. And as you do that, your profitability is going to start to go lower and lower and lower. It's going to happen. There is no way the next 10 to 15 years, NNPC will be in the exact same business as it's doing today without change. It's not possible. And there's going to be considerable change that's going to happen, not just from the marketplace, but from the regulators and also from the general public. Things are going to change. The banks are saying they're going to review. JP Morgan is the banker to the NNPC. How soon before JP Morgan says, hey, before we even do business with you, we want to see a climate pledge? That's basically what's going to happen. I've always argued that yes, we have to diversify the income sources, or as we say, diversify the quote unquote economy. But even in that side, if you go towards agriculture, right now the EU is banning palm oil or is taking palm oil off as a sustainable fuel. So if you have palm oil, the argument is that you are deforesting forests, or you're clearing forests to grow palm plantations, which is bad for the economy. So even the large palm oil plantations that Nigeria, for instance, trying to use to diversify away from crude oil is also under threat, yeah, because you have that is not a sustainable means of generating that produce. If you clear out forests just to do a plantation, you're destroying the natural fauna, and of course that's going to be frowned about. And it's not just the environment; it's also labor practices. It's also on the how you do business in your country. Nestle was taken to court in America for child labor issues in the Ivory Coast and all that. That's going to be more of a thing going forward. I mean, the point is this. If you are a multinational trying to do business in Africa or in the developing world, you have your work cut out for you. There are now more things that you have to worry about apart from infrastructure. There's now also the social compact that you have to worry about and take off that box. That number one, on the climate side, you were good. On the labor side, you were good. You cannot simply be a buyer of produce without asking about where the produce is actually coming from. How much are the pickers that are picking your cotton? How much are the growers that are growing your cocoa? How much are they being paid? How is your value chain ethical? These are questions that you have to answer as a multinational of today. And the countries that are going to win are the countries in Africa that go back to the value chain and start to certify their value chain as being not just climate friendly, but environmentally and labor friendly. So imagine if Nigeria was to go back to the cocoa chain and then institute policies that says no child labor. We're going to farm in sustainable ways. We're not going to clear out the forest. We're going to integrate the forest with other types of farming so that we have a humane, or say safer farming practice that protects the soil and adds back oxygen to the air and reduces, the amount of fossil fuels that are blown back into the atmosphere. That would be a win. So Nigeria could start that and say certify this farming practice as being at pace with the green agenda. That would be a big win. What of NNPC? NNPC can say, okay, hey, we're going to try to transit towards gas. We're going to go on, because Nigeria is all a gas country with just a little bit of crude oil. We're going to try to go towards gas. We're going to try to start a carbon market. We're going to try to do a big carbon capture. We're going to try to buy forest reserves in Nigeria and conserve those forest reserves to then use to buy back our carbon. So Nigeria gains with forest reserves, and NNPC gets its carbon credits. We have to start to think this way, because if we don't think this way, the next 15 years, you're going to have a lot of oil and nobody will buy from you because it's not environmentally friendly. So these are like questions I'm just asking or throwing out there in the air. I'm not an expert in the field of environmental sciences. I'm just following the money. And what I see is that the money is now going green. Green is the new black. If you are not green, you can't make the black. That's the point I'm making. And you have to go back now and ask yourself, is my business green? If it's not green, you are not going to be in the black. You are going to be in the red. And the red here means a loss. All right, guys, I'm going to let you guys go now. Keep following the Twitter handle, FinPlanCalu@1. I love it when you guys do that. I love you guys when you guys send me questions. Keep sharing, keep subscribing, and keep staying safe out there. I'll see you guys next time. Have a good day. Bye.